Hey everybody! Tonight we are recording a special episode for those of you who've kind of been following along. You know all about Brad's journey with his history with Ironman and his history with endurance training and endurance races. And so I'm your host, Brian Gill, and along with my co-host Brad Hill. But Brad is also the special guest tonight as we are talking about his most recent endurance race, the Ironman Chattanooga. So, Brad, thank you so much for sharing this with all of us.
Yeah, man. In the great words of the guy from The Office, "My, how the turntables have." Right? Was that Michael? When that Michael Scott said that?
Yes.
"My, how the turntables have." Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So, man, this race was it was almost the race that never was.
Yeah.
So tell us a
Long,
little
long,
bit about that.
long time coming, man. So, last year I was set to do this race. 2020. I was born in February of '80. It's going to be 140.6 on my 40th birthday year. Had a big celebration. Man, my wife awesomely put together this big, surprise birthday party at Dreamland Barbecue, and a bunch of friends came out and we celebrated my birthday together, and they all wrote notes of encouragement for me to go and accomplish Ironman again on my 40th birthday. And so thus began training and preparation. And as we all know, soon after February, lockdown happened.
Yeah.
And so, man, I continued to train because I'm registered for this race. Money's been spent,
And who
But
knew what was going to happen?
who knew?
Nobody knew.
No. So I had to train. Considering it's going to happen. So I had to train like it was going to. Deep down, I felt like this is not going to happen. You're just watching one domino after the next falling, and things canceling. And I thought, man, this is later in the year. Maybe there's a chance. Oh, this is going to last a couple of weeks, right? Oh, no.
2 weeks to flatten the curve. That's what we were doing.
The curve was never flattened. So man, Ironman was canceled. I'm 75, almost 80% into training, and the wind is just taken out of my sails, man. And so I've done all this hard work and in preparation, and now, it's like, it feels like for nothing, right? Obviously, it's not for nothing, and I get, it's gotten me further down the road in preparation and fitness and creating those habits that I want to have in my life, which is the whole reason I began this process to begin with. But still, you're like, it's been canceled.
Yeah.
And so now it's canceled. I take a little bit of a break from training, and then, first of the year rolls around. All right. I was like, gosh, I got to get going again, but it's still uncertain. There's still so much uncertainty. And so I got to get myself back into that mentality of, all right, now you got to prepare for Ironman again. So this is 2 years worth of like mental ups and downs for everybody, and for me especially in this training, not knowing if something's going to happen or not. Because ultimately, one of my huge fears, Brian, was like, we're going to get to the week of Ironman, and I could contract COVID and not be able to race. So there was still this uncertainty: is this going to happen or not? Right up until I towed the line.
Yeah.
So man,
as we'll get into later, we didn't know if it was going to finish. There was a lot of things that happened in this race that we'll get into in a little bit.
Absolutely, yeah. So we make it there. It's week of, and part of the story of how you ended up going with me was I found out that they were doing something from a COVID. You had to register for your check-in time, so that all 2,300 athletes weren't there on Friday trying to check in for the race.
Right.
And it was first come, first serve. Which meant all the Friday ones were already taken.
Right.
And so I had not planned on being off on Thursday, but ended up having to take off on Thursday. My wife unable to do that. Our kids are in school, and so I had to come up there by myself. So I drove to Chattanooga and got registered and checked in and got all the things that I needed to take care of. And then ended up working out where I came back to Birmingham, and I was
Yep.
so thankful, man, so thankful for you and your family allowing me to stay there, and then your family sharing you, and you go back with me so that I'm not all alone,
Yep.
which would have been terrifying to try to do, go
Oh,
up and do Ironman all by myself. Just not smart at
it's not
all.
wise. Yeah, that you got to have somebody, and from my perspective, I played a very small role, but that role was very important.
Oh man,
And I'm not building myself up on that, but you need someone, you need another person in case something were to happen, in case there was, and even as the small things of dropping you off places, picking you up places. I mean, parking is at a premium down there. It's not always easy to
absolutely.
get around in a small place when you have, 5,000 extra visitors to a town.
Yeah,
Um,
man, it was a mess, but man, I was just incredibly grateful for to not be there alone, but not only not be there alone, but have to have you there with me and part of this story. So that was ended up being a whole lot of fun to share this journey together for this Ironman. Obviously disappointed to not have my wife there, but thankful to have you there. So man, that was a absolute highlight for that trip for me
yeah,
personally. Yeah.
man, that was a lot of fun, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, but being able to experience that is, it's not something really, unless you have somebody in one of these races. You're not just typically going to just go down to the Ironman Village. You're not going to go down and hang out really. I mean, unless that's really just your world. So I would
Yeah.
have probably never had the opportunity to experience this, had it not happened, had it not been the way it
Yeah.
worked out. So I was very, gosh, man, when it was all over with, it was a phenomenal experience, and we'll get
Sure.
into that in just a second. So
Yeah, I tell people that all the time, man. If you've never, just as a sporting event, if you have an opportunity to go and experience the finish line at Ironman, it'd be worth your time to go see it and to go be a part of Ironman.
absolutely. So let's kind of fast forward into the actual race, the 24 hours of that race day. So the night before, you and I meet Alan, a friend of yours from Mobile. And Alan he's also a triathlon. He's a triathlete. He has
Yeah.
competed,
Oh yeah.
and he's done these races.
Yeah.
Um,
Good training, buddy. He and I have done a lot of training down in Fairhope together, where he lives.
yeah, and so I really enjoyed getting to meet him. We ate at the, what was it called, the Fee Table,
Yeah. The Feed Company and Tavern.
Feed Company and
Uh,
Tavern. And so,
yeah, it was awesome.
oddly enough, a friend and a mentor of mine, Bill Choate, who I occasionally will ride cycle with,
Oh yeah.
is his cousin who owns that restaurant. And I told him that, and he was like, "Oh yeah, you should have told him that I said hello." So it's a small world, but
Yeah.
we're eating there, and Alan, I've never met Alan before, so Alan's a big guy.
Yeah. He is.
He's in the Clydesdale class with
Yeah, we
with
proudly wear the Clydesdale badge.
yeah.
I mean, we're
He,
not fast, but we make it look good.
and you go a long way, and you're steady. Yeah. And so
That's right.
so Alan, he's bald headed. He has a strong jet black beard,
Oh yeah.
and just a joy to be around him and his wife. It was fun to hang out with those guys. But Alan, the reason I bring Alan into it, he's going to come into play in a little bit, and so we'll see Alan
Yeah,
in
man.
a little bit. But so we had that great dinner. We went to bed pretty early. It's Saturday night. We watched, I guess, a little bit of football that night, and went
Yeah.
to bed. And we got up pretty early the next morning. Got there, I guess we got up around 5 a.m. And first thing we have to do is kind of go and just, you've got to take your last bag, take your stuff to the transition area, and
Right.
so I see you, and I drop you off at the bus stop. The bus stop is going to carry you to the starting line, basically the start of the swim.
Yeah, because it's a point to point swim. Everybody. There's the swims in the river. They're like, "Are you swimming upstream?" I'm like, "No,
No,
that
no,
would not be okay."
no, that would, yeah, there would be a lot of people
Yeah.
downstream
So
if that
so
was the case.
yeah, absolutely, that'd be terrible. So a point to point swim the bus drops us off, and we swim back to this transition area where all of our stuff is there in downtown Chattanooga, right there next to the aquarium and all that. It was a really
Oh
cool
yeah,
downtown area, by the way.
Chattanooga downtown, they've done a phenomenal job with that area.
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I dropped Brad off at the bus stop, and it's a 2.5 mile walk to the swim start. And so it was about 5:45. I think the race was going to start at 7:45 whenever sunlight came up. And so I had 2 hours to get there. And so I walked really fast in the dark, and I had no idea where I was going. It was very unmarked. I mean, at best. And so
And it was
I'm
dark.
walking and I'm following this guy, and I'm like, he looks like he's kind of going the same direction as me. And he had an Ironman backpack. And so I speak to him. Well, he doesn't speak English. He speaks French only. And I only know like 2 words in French. And so,
Bonjour.
yeah, yeah. Even if I would have said something to him, I wouldn't have known what to respond. I mean, I basically know what the word trash can is and like hello. And so, I mean, that really wasn't going to get me too far in this conversation.
Yeah.
But so I walked with him for a while, and he asked me a few things, and I had no idea, and every time I try to talk to somebody from a foreign language, it always is a train wreck. I mean, I end up talking some kind of a weird accent, and I talk really loud, and I can't really, it's just a train wreck. And I really apologize whenever I'm trying to talk to somebody. But he said something about 2.5 kilometers. I'm like, well, I know that it's going to be a little bit further than 2.5 kilometers from where we're going, because I know that this is a 2.5 mile swim. And so I was like, I think I just nodded and said something, and let's just keep walking. And so, for a while we walked together, and then I kind of broke off. He went down another trail, and I started seeing lights way ahead of me. I saw a trail that goes right by the river, and as I'm walking down, I'm starting to see this bluff. We're pretty high up on a bluff. I'm starting to see these little openings in the bluff and in the woods where you can see the river. And I'm thinking, okay, well, when I come back, Brad's going to be in the water. I'm going to try to find these little openings again, and I have my big camera with me. I've got my nice camera with a 100 to 400 millimeter lens. I can zoom in pretty close on the swimmers and see if I can find Brad. So I made a mental note, and I'm walking down, and then I see the starting line, and all I see is 2,300 people, and I'm like,
Just a mass of
just a
neoprene and
mass.
swim caps.
And this was not a wide trail. I mean, you're talking 50 feet of trail, and it looks like it goes for a mile of just people. And I'm like, there's no way I'm going to find Brad. So I start walking through the crowd, and if you've watched our podcast on the YouTube, if you've seen Brad, pictures of Brad, he has a very strong red beard.
That's right.
And there were only about a handful of guys on the race that had a big bright red beard. So I was like, my odds are pretty good. If I see a red beard, right, I'm going to find him. So I'm walking, I'm about halfway through the crowd, and I finally spot him. I'm like, hey buddy. So we got an hour and a half to hang out,
just
something like that.
There. Yeah.
Just standing there. And so I'm starting to observe people, and I'm looking, okay, you got some people dancing, this music is blaring. It's trying to hype up to the crowd,
Oh, yeah.
You got some people stretching. You got some people trotting in place. You got some people still wearing like a jumpsuit because it was a little bit chilly. It was really nice weather. But then I started thinking, this is the pregame. I've never competed in anything of this magnitude, but I've played sports. You get these pregame jitters. You get this whole thing. And I was reading in a sports psychology magazine the other day, and talking about pregame jitters. And it's like, when you get this pregame jitter, it's really your body is saying, I'm ready to compete.
Yeah.
I'm ready to go. I'm tired of thinking about the whole race. I'm tired of thinking of it in its entirety. I'm ready to go so that I could just think about that task in front of me.
Yes.
What is your mental state going into this? And were there pregame jitters? What was the pregame mental preparation for you like in this moment?
Sure. Yeah. So so much training is led to this moment right now. Not just a year, but now 2 years of training has led to this moment. And honestly, in the words of some folks were like, man, I'm just over it. I was just over it. You know, I was excited, but I was over it. It's been so long. There's been so many hours. I'm ready to get going. And so I was genuinely, I was ready to hit the water and get started. And then coming into this race, you know, I had so many encouragers, and they were all sweet. So many people that sent me notes and messages, and folks that were following me on the app, and I was just overwhelmed with encouragement. And all of them had such confidence in me. They were like, "Man, I know you're going to do great. I know you're going to finish." And I would just temper that. I go, I hope so. Like, I want to. That's my goal.
That makes one of us.
Yeah, that definitely. But it's not a given. Like, this is
Right.
not a given. This is such a big day and such a long day. But I don't take it for granted that I'm going to definitely finish. This is not like, you know, anything else that you've ever done. This is not like your half marathon. This is not even like your marathon. This is 140, and in Chattanooga, 144 miles.
Tell us about how that's broken up. I don't. Maybe there may be maybe some people that don't know
Sure.
what Ironman is, real quick.
Yeah, sure. So Ironman is a triathlon that you race, and it's a long form triathlon, right? So you begin in the swim downstream in the river in Chattanooga. In Panama City, it was in the Gulf of Mexico, but you begin with a 2.4 mile swim. You come out of the swim, you exit the swim to your bike ride, which is normally 112 miles. But in Chattanooga, the way that they do the route, it's an additional 4 miles, which we'll get to later. So 112 miles traditionally, and then you end the day with a marathon at 26.2 miles, which is all in total is 140.6. Chattanooga 144.6, and so it's a long day and not a guaranteed finish. And so it's really difficult to think about the whole day. You can't think about all three phases. So in those moments, my jitters were, I'm fixing to get in the Tennessee River. It's a lot better than the Gulf because there aren't sharks and there aren't jellyfish, right?
Right.
So I didn't have any of those things to worry about. There might be a giant catfish down there, but
Maybe a log floating by.
maybe a log, but not too much to be concerned with other than the other swimmers around
Right.
you. But it was amazing. And but you're still fixing to get into a large body of water where you're not in control of the things around you. And so there are those jitters of nervous of you're fixing to undertake something enormous.
So I see you at the you know, we're walking, and I see you finally at the where you go down this little walkway, basically a ramp, and it goes to basically kind of like a harbor type dock.
Yeah, just a little floating pier that they put out there for the
Yep.
race.
Little floating pier, and I find one of my perches that I saw, and I set up, and I actually get to see you step into the water,
Yeah,
and take your picture, and so, you know,
that was incredible.
well, you know, it was, I could not believe that I actually saw you, and I was like, well, this is a sea of a literal sea, well, a river of people, and I find you, and so I'm like, oh man, this is nuts. So I'll take, you know, 100 pictures, and I think I showed you like 3 of like that were actually good, but so, you know, okay, you get in and you go past my vantage point, and okay, I start trotting. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go down to the next one, try to find him again. And so I put my backpack on. I got my camera in my bag, and I'm running. And I pass this group of people, and they're like, "Guys, we need to pick it up. Even the cameraman's passing us." I'm like, "Well, I'm not
What's
really
that, insinuating that all cameramen are out of shape or something?
Yeah, well, I mean, I know I
What's
got
the
a
deal
little work
here?
to do, but you know, let's. So I finally go. I mean, I break away from the crowd, and I get to another one of these perches, and I'm looking. I'm like, well, this is impossible. I can't find Brad. I'm not going to find. I'm just going to kind of observe. And so I was there all alone. It was, you know, sunrise just in the distance, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, I could hear like this chorus of like water clapping. I mean, and there were no crowds, there were no cheers. It was just the sound of people swimming, of thousands of people swimming,
Yeah.
and it was a peaceful moment. Like, it was like, in my mind, I'm observing this from above, and I'm thinking, gosh, this is really a nice experience. And I don't know, it's kind of cool.
Well, it's
But then I
quite the
started.
different experience for me, buddy.
Well, that's what I was about to say. I mean,
The contrast.
I'm watching this and it looks so peaceful, but then you're out there doing one of the most excruciating events that a athlete can do in an Ironman, and 90% or maybe even 95% of this whole race is without any kind of cheering, any kind of crowds, any kind of support. Most of it's done in solitude. How do you
Right.
keep yourself motivated when all you hear is the gentle clapping of water and the pedaling of bikes and scuffling of
Yeah.
feet?
Yeah. It's pretty challenging, for sure. And, I think in the water, um, you're, you know, water's in your ear. It's a little muffled. Um, it's warmer than the outside temperature. Outside temperature, I think, was like 56, 55. Water temp was like 74. But it's still cool. And so initially, um, it takes your breath away, and you get a little anxiety, and you're like struggling to find your rhythm. And so, man, just for the first little bit, just kind of swimming along, side stroke, and just trying to calm down.
Hmm.
Um, and then you find your rhythm. And so I was one of the things I was thinking about, I kept enjoying is, well, I was thinking Brian's going to have a hard time finding me because I breathe for the most part on my right side, which was away from the bank that you were on.
Right. That was
And
difficult.
so, yeah, so you're not seeing the red flash come up out of the water for a breath. And so every so often I would pop up my head to kind of see where I was, to see where the buoys are, make sure I'm going straight.
Right.
And hopefully, like, maybe you could catch me when I popped my head up and you could see my red beard.
Yeah. Because
And then I'd go
everybody in there is wearing
same
a
swim caps.
green swim cap.
Yeah, right. Um, so, but one of my favorite little shots, or that I wish I could have, it's in my mind's eye, and I wish I had like a GoPro or something. Right, was, and if you could see, like, if you've ever swam before, when that hand goes in the water, right in front of me, I could see that hand, and it was just this beautiful, like, kind of greenish clear water that was a little murky, but mostly clear. I couldn't see the bottom, but it was in a river.
Mm-hmm.
So it was incredible to see those bubbles as my hand goes into the water, and your ears are full of water, and so it's kind of quiet. So it's not very frantic, especially once everybody gets kind of spread out,
Right.
because we're not one on top of the other, therefore, and everybody gets into the rhythm. You have 2.4 miles to swim, so it gets pretty spread out. You pop up and you look around and you realize I'm in this giant river, and it's really unbelievable. But to your point, it's not as contrast as what it is. It was very, it is peaceful in moments when you get into a rhythm, because you don't have a lot to think about. You don't have anyone to talk to.
Mm.
But man, just that subtle plunge into the water, you see those bubbles and you clear and you hear your own breathing,
Mm.
and you just kind of sink into something you've done 1,000 times in the swimming pool at the YMCA for me, which is
Right.
where I usually do my training. And it's the water's water, like
Mm.
you can get mentally freaked out by the lack of lane lines and the lack of walls, or the lack of being able to put your feet down. But at the end of the day, water is water, and your technique is the same. And so you fall back onto that training and do something you've done for thousands and thousands of times, and you get into that rhythm. And it is solitary, but it is early on. It's a great start to the race.
Mm.
You definitely don't want to finish with the swim.
Well, I guess that's strategic there.
That'd be harmful.
Yes. So the next time I see you, I found my way down to the transition from where you get out of the water and work your way towards the transition, and that would get you to the bike. So I found you there.
Yeah.
I've got this app. I'm tracking you. I kind of know generally when you're going to be coming in front of me, but
Right.
it's not a given. There's still a mass of people. But I found
Mm-hmm.
you, and man, I take a few shots of you, then I run up to the little walkway there where you're coming out of the water, man, you are all smiles. You're like making friends on with fans. You're high fiving folks. I mean, I've got this picture of just this huge grin on your face, and you passed me, gave me a fist bump, and said, "I killed it. I just PR'd." And so you had a PR on your
Oh,
swim. That's
by
huge.
by a long shot. I mean,
It was about like
and
30 minutes, wasn't it?
yeah, this is all river though. It's not my ability to swim. This is all river. I mean, my first swim was in the Gulf of Mexico, right?
Yeah.
It's November, in the ocean, and you do 2 laps. So you do a 1.2 mile lap twice, and you have to come out of the water, run down the beach, and re-enter the water, swim out a half mile, and then make this loop and then come back. And so you have no current really.
Right.
Maybe a little current coming back in because the prevailing winds
Right.
are pushing the waves that way. But you have to contend with huge swells and waves. That was a difficult swim. This swim in Chattanooga is why people go to do this race. Is it's downstream in this huge river, and you are absolutely trucking.
And you're wearing a
there's
wetsuit.
and you're wearing a wetsuit, which makes you super slick in the water. And so, man, it was awesome. And all the guys getting out of the water around me were stopping our Garmins and are like, "Holy mackerel, that was like an hour and 10 minutes." That's normally an hour and 30 minutes for me.
Wow.
And so, man, it was an incredible start to today. But boy, did it go south after that.
Well, let's talk. Let's don't go south too quick. Let's talk about that PR for just a second. So, those people. Most people, unless you're a professional, unless you are elite, you're really fighting yourself. You're competing against yourself for the most
Sure.
part, and a PR is a really big deal.
Yeah,
Talk a
it
little
was
bit
encouraging.
about the competition side of this. I mean, you're running your own race and against
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah, it's an individual sport for sure. Like it's you, you against the clock. Um, and you against the behemoth that is Ironman, that is an endurance race.
Mm.
Um, there are guys that I know that are very, very type A that they care about every millisecond on course. And a good friend of mine, reminded me. He's like, "Man, don't get too worked up in the swim." And he's like, "You're not gonna PR Ironman overall in the swim because it's really the shortest part of the day." And so it was awesome to have like a PR and to have a great swim. And I'll never forget that swim and that swim time. And I'll probably never swim that fast again.
Mm.
It was just, perfect times. During the swim though, I did get a little, which kind of began and set the tone for the day. Usually I swim all arms and I kick a little bit. And one time when I kicked, I got a little catch in my hamstring and in my leg. And I thought, oh my goodness, like,
It's too early for this.
This is bad, But then I was able to get it to go away, and I was like, maybe it was I don't know what that was,
Right.
but I've never. And so, boy, that comes back to haunt me later. That cramps had already kind of shown their heads, and I got a long day ahead of me. And I'm a bigger guy, and I'm just not one of those guys that's going to ever be fast, and I'm okay with that. My goal was to finish. And so it started out great. I was way ahead of the game, coming out of the water the way that I did, and entering the bike. It was really encouraging too. Another friend from church down here in Mobile, Richard Harvey's a dear friend of mine that I ride bikes with from time to time. He's actually from Chattanooga, so he was also there at the swim exit to see me come out of the water and out onto the bike. So,
Nice.
seeing those familiar faces, seeing your face, seeing Alan's face, is so encouraging when it is a long, lonely day. So when you come around some corner and you see somebody that cheering for you, man, it bolsters your spirit. Like, it's really difficult to explain, what that really feels like. But man, it is so important and encouraging because although it is an individual sport that I race, it's very much a group effort.
Yeah, that's a good
when
point.
it comes to participation. Yeah, I mean,
Well, and the
I
amount
couldn't
of
have made it there without I couldn't have made it without you helping me, ferrying me around, or Alan.
Yep.
So man, it's a group effort, although it's an individual accolade, but it doesn't come without help. That's for certain.
Well, and you mentioned Paige, and you know, it you couldn't do it without a supportive wife. the amount
No
of
way.
training you put in. I mean,
Yeah,
this is just as much of a victory for her, I feel like, as it is for you, just
for
because of,
sure.
she's solo parenting. I know a little bit about that just because my wife is training for a 50-mile trail run, and so
Yeah.
there's a lot of training involved in these endurance races, and
It's a
so
huge time investment.
yeah.
Absolutely enormous time investment.
Um, Roosevelt said, "Comparison is the thief of joy." What has
Mm.
participating in a endurance individual sport like this taught you um, about the dangers of comparison or the dangers of maybe looking at something other than just a PR?
Yeah. It's pretty easy to look out on the course and, compare yourselves to other athletes. But one thing Ironman has definitely taught me is it's a great equalizer.
Mm,
Um, you can look at someone and compare yourself, and you go, I don't look as fit as that person does,
mm,
or maybe I look more fit than that person does. Yet they're chugging along,
mm,
and the person that looks more fit than you is, by the time you're at mile 15, they're sitting on the curb with their head in their hands, tapping
mm,
out for the day.
mm,
And so you have to be careful, with comparison, and really set your eyes on what you're trying to do, and that's finish.
mm,
For me, that's my goal. I'm not a time junkie. Um, unless you're a professional,
mm-hmm,
I get the same medal that the guy who finished 4 hours ahead of me gets.
mm-hmm,
They still call my name and say, "You're an Ironman."
mm.
If you make it in that time limit that they give you, you're an Ironman. So, like, and for me, like, I invested all this money. I'm like, well, I'm going to milk it for every second that they offer, right? And boy, did I! I got my
We,
money's worth on this thing.
we butted right up against that there. Oh
But
man.
yeah, comparison is it's not something it's not a trap that I fall into as much anymore,
Right.
especially on the Ironman course. I'm a big guy, and so
Yeah.
I dare somebody to go out there weighing what I weigh and give it a try.
It takes a lot of work to get where you are. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. All right, so we're finishing up. You're transitioning. You're about to get on your bike ride, and I don't see you. And again, I don't see
Yeah,
you again until you're transitioning from the bike to the run. So you're the majority of your day, or the mileage wise at least,
oh
is
sure,
is in this bike ride. And
yeah,
so when I see you again, I'm seeing you, and I think I'm at about mile 1.5 from the transition to the top of the river walk that goes. You start going up this big hill that's really not your friend at this point. And at this point, I see you, and you say, "I started cramping on the swim," and then you just rode 100 and is it 16?
yeah,
116 miles on your bike,
yeah.
cramping. And that was not an easy bike ride. As easy as that swim was,
Oh yeah,
it
yeah,
was just as difficult for that bike ride from
sure.
what you said. So tell us about
Yeah,
where you were with this.
yeah. It's super funny, man. People compare Ironmans, and you go, well, there's pros and cons to different races, and it's all 140 miles. Um, it's all hard. Panama City's flat, quote unquote,
Right.
air quotes flat, but you have wind in your face a lot of the time,
Oh, yeah.
which there's no downhill for.
Right.
But Chattanooga, you got a downriver swim, but the bike ride involves 4,800 feet of elevation gain,
Mm.
which you get downhills, which are awesome, but it's still a lot of climbing. And
Tell
but
us
it
about
was,
one of those
oh
downhill.
yeah, it was good. First of all, the course is beautiful. I mean, the course is, you go south out of Chattanooga into North Georgia. Lookout Mountain is on your right as you're going out, and it's beautiful. I mean, you're on these rolling hills. They aren't too bad, but what you're doing is you're stair stepping up in elevation each time you go over this rolling hill. You're gaining a little elevation, gaining a little more elevation. you're going by these beautiful farms and horses and cows and mountain rivers, and you're getting higher and higher. And I go up this long sort of grinding hill that seemed like it lasts forever. And there's this one guy set up encouraging and cheering people right as it ticked up really steep for a section. This was the first time. And I look at the guy next to me and I said, man, this is going to really be difficult when we come back around on the second loop of this bike ride. And I'm not going to repeat what he said, but it was basically like, no kidding. And you can use your imagination as to what he could have possibly said. But yeah, it was. I knew this was going to be a breaking point on the second loop of this ride. But one of the cool things about Ironman is you get to share the course with professional athletes. So the pro athletes, a couple of guys, that I really, really like to follow. Ben Hoffman, one of the top American triathletes, was out on course. I got to see him. Seeing those cool guys, unbelievable how fast they are. And they come by you like, they're on a motorcycle, but they're pedaling, and you just kind of hear them coming, and it's incredible. But this female pro, came by me, and we're on the end of the first loop, and she's probably already finishing her second loop. I mean, they're so fast. But at the end of my first loop, before you can take a right to go back to Chattanooga or left, but before you get there, there's this really, really, really long, I can't stress how long, it seemed like it lasted forever, descent coming down this long, long hill. Really great pavement, sweeping curves, nothing tight. I didn't have to touch the brakes. But on the way to the top of this hill, this female pro passes me. Obviously, I'm a big guy, so gravity's not my friend when going up.
Going up.
When going up being the key word there. But I crested that hill, and I saw like this is going to be a long descent. I didn't know how long. And so, man, I tucked in, and it's something I enjoy doing. Everybody's like, man, I would be terrified, but I love it, and it's so much fun to me. And it's very exhilarating to descend quickly on your road bike. And so, man, I am absolutely blistering down this hill.
How fast did you top out at?
42 miles an hour.
42 miles. You're breaking the speed limit on this road, I bet.
Yeah, I'm cooking, absolutely cooking. And I see this female pro lady, buck 35 or something, Here I am, no lie, 265, 270, probably 270-ish, but I've sweated a lot by this point, so I might be 268.
Yeah.
But absolutely blew by her like she had a parachute on. As I go by her, I sing John Mayer's "Oh Gravity." I just blow by her, man. I was like, never in my life would I be able to dust a pro, but man, there's nothing she could do in that moment
She was going as fast as she could.
Pure physics at that moment, man. And it was an absolute blast. That was the only fun I had on that bike course, but I absolutely blew by her and went on to my second loop of the race, which is when things really, really started to get difficult. I make it all the way around, Bryan, to that hill, and I'm on that steep part of the hill. I'm at mile 80 on this bike ride, 80, and I get the full-on, my legs straighten out, locked up, cramp in the biggest muscle in my body, in my quads.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, my goodness. It was excruciating. I was able to unclip my pedals and not crash. Amazingly, I didn't crash. And I just stood there on this hill as people were like very slowly pedaling past me, and I'm thinking my day's over. I'm not gonna be able to overcome this. No way, man. These are massive cramps. But people. The other glorious thing about the community of Ironman is each person that came by me, every one of them, like, come on, man, you can do it. Don't give up. They're in their own pain cave. They're in their own moment of, this sucks. They're in their own struggle, and every one of them were like, come on, man, don't give up. You can do it. Encourage you along. And so, man, I just start walking my bike up this hill, and I look behind me, and there are 3 or 4 other people doing the very same thing. They're pushing their bike up this ridiculously steep hill. And I'm able to shake these cramps off. I slam as many goos and Gatorade as my gut can handle to try to replenish and get ahead of these cramps.
Mm.
And ultimately, I'm able to shake them off for a while
Mm-hmm.
and get back on the bike. Not long after that was the second descent on that really, really long hill, which gave me a break. I obviously didn't have to pedal.
Right.
And, it happened one more time on one little uphill that I had to hop off for a second and stretch and pull out my cramps. And I was just like constantly like taking in nutrition, trying to do everything I could to just make it. I was like, man, if I can just make it to the run, I'll be really, really happy that I've made it that far at this point.
Yeah. So I'm following you and tracking with you on this app, and I see that you're at the bike transition. I knew I probably had about 10, 15 minutes to get into my position to where I would see you again, because, a lot of people, like you were talking about shaving off time, they try to shave off a lot of that time in the transitions. They try to make that as quickly as possible. I think you took an approach that you want to make sure your feet are dry. You want to make sure you've got hydrated. Anything that you can do to make this last stretch comfortable, as possible. So I knew that wasn't going to be a fast transition, but I knew that I didn't have a whole lot of time. So I got into my position. I saw you coming. I saw that you had passed the 0.5 mile mark, and then it's a little, just a few minutes until I see you coming up the hill, and you're using this time to kind of regroup, get your legs under you, stretch, just a fast walk. And I was like, okay, well, maybe I can hang out with Brad for a few minutes. And so first thing you say when you see me is that, man, I've been cramping. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, we've got a marathon to run. From this point to the finish line, you've got a marathon, and that's, you got about 7 hours to do it.
Yep.
And so I walk with you for about a half a mile, and at this point, there's nothing I can say to that it would encourage, other than just, man, you're doing great, you're looking good, looking strong, that type of thing. But in my mind, I was thinking of that scene in Lord of the Rings when Samwise says, "I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you. Let's go." And I'm like, let me hoist you on my shoulder and take you this marathon. Well, that wasn't happening. This is not my race.
No outside help. And somebody in the race could do that for you, but no outside help.
So I was helpless. I mean, honestly, helpless. Right. And seeing my friend hurting, and at this point I'm thinking, gosh, this is a marathon. And a lot of people can't even do a marathon, much less having already completed 218 miles. Then you've got, 118 miles, I'm sorry. And then you've got cramps on top of that. It's been a long day. I'm thinking, I'm not sure if Brad can physically do this. Like, I know he's not going to quit. Quit is not something that Brad's going to do, but like, is his body going to hold up and finish this race? It's so like,
I had all those same questions and all those same thoughts.
Yeah. So tell me about that. Is there any point where you're questioning either, am I going to be able to physically do this? Mentally, I feel like you were there.
Yeah.
Physically, you really, sometimes you don't have control over that, but emotionally, man, is there any time you're questioning yourself in this? What are you asking yourself at this point?
Sure. You just like, let's just get going and see, I had this kind of, all right, well, let's see what happens. I'm going to keep going until they tell me that I can't. I'm going to try to get into a rhythm. And honestly, right after I saw you, right after we kind of got up the hill, we take a right, when we get out onto this road, and it's fairly flat. Mm-hmm. And so I settled into an okay rhythm. Honestly, it wasn't as bad. Weather was phenomenal. Thank God for the weather. Had it been really hot like that race traditionally is, I'd have been in real trouble.
And like you had been in Panama City. I mean, that was
Yeah,
the
it was
humidity level
super,
was
super hot and humid. Yeah.
right.
But I was able to stay pretty dry. My feet were not like squishy or anything. So my race strategy of keeping my feet dry had worked to that point, which staved off blisters. Excuse me. But yeah, I had all those thoughts and all those doubts, and there were certainly very dark points in that marathon that I was like, I'm not gonna make it. I'm telling myself, and I'm saying it even out loud. By myself. I'm like, there's no way I'm gonna be able to finish this thing. I'm running out of time. The clock is ticking. I can like almost hear, an audible clock, like an old grandfather clock in the house ticking. And each step is slower than the ticks that are ticking off on the clock. And I'm like, man, I'm not good. This is not going to happen. Maybe this is not my day. I was like, boy, I don't want to do this again. I really don't want to do this again.
You want to end on a high note.
But I do. But I was like, man, I don't want to go out that way either. So I was like, boy, you better pick up the pace then. If you want to be done, then finish. And so, giving yourself pep talks and and doing math, terribly doing math, with your mind's going because you're exhausted after, lots of hours, but you're doing math and you just keep plugging away and keep chugging and I would feel a cramp about to happen and I would kind of back off a little bit and go, oh, no.
Not today, Satan.
Not today. And I'd back off and I would find out whatever that threshold was, and I would be right beneath that threshold of I'm about to cramp up.
Right.
And genuinely, that was the way that I survived that marathon, was right at the very threshold of about to have a cramp. And I was able to, somehow through the power of perhaps prayer of people that said they were praying for me. Some of it is, probably the quality of being about as hard-headed as they come, of not quitting, which can be a bad quality, or in this case, a very good quality. Is I wasn't going to quit. I genuinely, I can say that with all confidence. I'm not going to quit. They will have to tell me you can no longer continue because you're not going to make the cutoff.
Well, and that was what
to which I would have been probably relieved, honestly.
Yeah. Well, that was what was worrying me.
Yeah.
As you went into this marathon, that I knew you weren't going to quit, but I also knew that if there was some reason that you didn't, that it was not going to be good.
Yeah.
And that was what, and in my mind, I was like, okay, he's trained for this, but he also didn't expect there to be cramps. Cramps is a huge thing in an endurance sport.
Yeah, and never in training had ridden hundreds and hundreds of miles and run several hundred miles in preparation, swam a bunch, and never had I dealt with cramps. I'm genuinely looking back, I'm not sure what I had done wrong pre-race. Maybe I didn't hydrate enough pre-race or take in enough nutrition or something I did differently that led to some significant cramping that was almost the end of my race. But somehow I was able to, thank goodness, thank God, I was able to press through some significant pain. Often it would bring to mind Paul's words in the Romans that suffering produces endurance. And endurance produces character, and character does not put to shame. And so verses like that would come through my head of just continue to persist, continue to endure, continue to take just one more step, make it to that light pole, right?
Yep.
Don't worry about 26 miles, worry about this mile that you're on, literally, like physically telling myself that and doing that. And worrying about what's, sort of right in front of me versus what's ahead of me, which, oftentimes I think, we wish for those moments in life where we're like, man, I wish I could see far off, see what the finish is going to be like. When really what we need to worry about is what's right here in front of me. I think, maybe that's why the word is a lamp unto our feet and a light unto our path, not a spotlight off in the distance, right?
Yep.
And so I would think about that. I was like, don't worry about off out in the distance, worry about right here And that's honest. That's not cliche. That's genuinely what I was telling myself.
That's as
Is
far as you could see is that first step in front of you.
and just worry about that one.
Yep.
And make it to, I'm on mile 6. All right, now we're on 7. Let's worry about mile 7, and let's get there. And then let's just see how it pans out. How does it happen? And just keep moving. Just keep moving. And man, I was able to. It got really dark.
Well, the sun was going down probably when you were around mile 7 or 8, I would think. I mean, it was around there. I mean, I was my day was very different than yours. I mean, I was watching the sunset, reading A River Runs Through It right beside the Tennessee River, and hanging out in the cool of the air, and you're sitting there grueling on mile 130 of your race, and this is beautiful sunset.
Yeah, right. I tell you, the darkest moment, though, genuinely, both like literally and spiritually, was the race course. You go down this road and you come back up this river walk, which is awesome in Chattanooga, by the way. This huge pedestrian path that runs along the side of the river.
That was the path, by the way, that I took to get to you.
The swim start.
Yep, that's beautiful, absolutely gorgeous,
and fantastic. And you come up this hill back into town, and you take a right, and you go over the bridge over the river. And when you get over that bridge, you're looking up at this giant hill, and your countenance just falls, and your soul is crushed. I mean, like the dude from Indiana Jones reaches into your chest and pulls your heart out. You're looking up at this giant hill. Soul crushing moment. And you got to go up this huge hill, and you're dead. You're absolutely dead. And you make it up the hill, and then you start running down this hill. And it just goes down forever. And if you're like me, like sometimes I think going down is just as bad as going up.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of room for error there.
Yes. And we just kept going down and kept going down and kept going down. And I'm like, oh, my goodness, when is this ever going to stop? And then you get to the bottom of it, and it dawns on you, I got to go back up the hill I just went down.
That's lap 1.
That's lap 1. I got to come back over here and do all that again. Oh man! At that point, I was like, "Yeah, this is probably not going to work out for me this year."
So let's stop right there. So I'm tracking you on this app. All right.
Yeah.
So I know where you are. And I'm waiting at the finish line. And so I went and grabbed a mellow mushroom pizza. And I'm just living my best life while you're out there grueling in this race. And I'm thinking, you know what? I don't have any kids right now. My wife's out of town. I'm out of town. I'm going to go and have a pizza. And so, I go over there and I watch a little bit of a baseball game. I come back and I'm like, I just want to watch this. I want to watch this finish line. And so, it's about 10:30. And at this finish line, it's so hard to explain what I'm experiencing. I mean, you're hearing this announcer say, so-and-so, you are an Ironman. And, and then you've got these people coming across this finish line that are emotional. They're crying, they're in tears, they're breaking down when they hear their name called. It's an emotional time because every hour, every minute of training has come into this moment right here, and they did it. And I'm watching this. I don't even know these people. And man, I'm getting a tear in my eye. And so I'm watching this app, and I'm watching Brad. I'm like, he's at mile 21. He's at mile 23. He's at mile 24. And it's about midnight. And all of a sudden, my app says no finish time, course closed. And I'm thinking, what has happened? Brad's on the side of the road at mile 24 and a half. I got to do something. Right. I got to do something. I got to go find him because I know he's not going to quit. He's hurt. Like Brad is injured, and I've got to go find him. So I had just literally gotten your bike from the transition area. So I've got your bike, and I'm sitting there. I'm like, okay, how long do I wait? how long do I wait before I get on this bike and go up that trail and start finding Brad and just make sure he's not dead on the side of the road? Like literally, I was nervous. I'm standing by some people and I'm trying to get nervous. I'm texting people. I'm like, okay, what's going on? What's going on? And all of a sudden, there's this huge uproar in the crowd, and everybody's laughing. And off in the distance, I see a very large man, bald headed,
The big black beard.
strong black beard, wearing nothing but an American flag Speedo, riding a bike with a bullhorn in his hand. And he comes right up to me. Everybody's going nuts. I'm like, who is this guy? It's Alan. The guy. He's the guy that we had dinner with the night before. Yeah. And like he comes straight up to me and says, I just saw him. He's around the corner. He's on his way. And you would have thought that angels had descended on the earth and just said, fear not, for he has been born today. And so I start telling people everywhere around me, I'm like, Brad's coming. And so like this girl that was standing beside me, her and her boyfriend, she takes off down the trail as far as I could see. And like, I see you in the distance. And then I start hearing people chanting for Brad as you're coming across. And
that's hilarious.
And you get in right into my view there, and I'm videoing it, and so take it over from there.
Yeah, well, backing up a little bit. I'm doing math. There at the end, one of the checkpoints they let us know that your app finished because traditionally, midnight is the cutoff. Mm-hmm. But the swim start was delayed,
right?
And that dominoed everyone behind us,
right?
But
that was not known at the time, and I was freaking out. And so,
sure, yeah,
this app stopped. I mean,
yeah, a lot of people were
proof of life has gone.
yeah, and that was Paige. That was all the people here in Mobile, here at home that were my small group, people that were following. We're all in your boat, man. We're freaking out. I was getting messages like, the app cut off. What happened? Are you okay? Stuff like that. And I pass a time check that is that mile, 24 or 25 and a quarter or something. And I can't remember what the guy says, but he basically was like, man, you're going to make it.
Yeah.
He's like, you got 50 minutes
to
go a mile and a quarter.
Yep.
And I was like, man, I can do that.
You got that.
So I just continued on, what I was doing. And man, I come down that hill, right? Because we're coming down that hill at that point.
Yep.
It goes under this overpass, and it gets really dark because there aren't any lights down there, and we're all very spread out. And man, I have that genuine emotional cry that I know I'm going to finish.
Mm.
It sinks in. I'm like, I am going to finish. After all that, like, I doubted, I struggled. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to finish. And now, like, just keep, just put one foot in front of the other. You're going to finish. And I come up into town, and you come over, and there's this wonderful, like, huge pedestrian bridge that goes over the river there in Chattanooga. Yet another cool thing that they have in their town. And we come over that, and I crest the top of that bridge, and I'm coming down that bridge, and there stands Alan in his, his American flag Speedo and his trucker hat and a bullhorn yelling my name. And I was laughing.
It was a sight to see, man.
Quite a sight to be welcomed by Alan. It gave me that, and he was there at the turnaround at the 13.1 mile mark too. And I had already seen him, so I knew what he looked like and what he was going to be wearing. And at that moment, like, that was a pick-me-up for sure. I got a good laugh in a moment of genuine pain.
Right.
That I'm fixing to run now 13.1 miles after all I've just done. But, man, it was, that's part of, what that's about, is bringing some laughter and some joy and a smile to people's faces that are in the midst of the pain cave or the hurt locker, whatever you want to call it. But it was just super funny to see him there, and we had a good laugh and gave him a big hug, and we knew I was going to finish. And so, man, what a feeling. There's not quite There's nothing quite like it. I can say this now. I had my phone with me, which I'm not completely sure you're supposed to have your phone with you, but I had taken it with me just in case, and I was able to call Paige before I got down to the finish line, and and let her know that, like, I'm about to cross the line.
Wow.
I'm about to finish. We did it, and it's
What
super
a
cool.
special moment.
I get a little emotional just thinking about it. It's such a hard day.
It's an emotional day, and it's an incredibly emotional time for people who've
Woo.
supported you through this whole thing,
Yeah.
man. Because you did it.
Yeah, you get across this line and you hear, the words, Brad Hill, you are an Ironman, and you get this welcome after a long race. And I can't help but think, Scripture, Paul often talks about, run the race with endurance, and running with endurance, or, endurance building character, and character doesn't put to shame. And there's all these parallels to to running the race and finishing the race. And here I am, genuinely, literally finishing a difficult, multi-hour, 16-hour and 20-minute race of hurt, of pain, of some triumph, some laughter, beauty. Surrounded by beautiful, East Tennessee, and but also doubt as to whether or not I'm going to finish. I had all this wonderful help from friends like you and my wife and my family, and encouraging messages, and coming through that finishing chute, they call it. They have this beautiful, wonderful carpet that has the Ironman logo on it as you enter that carpet, and it's lit up, and music is slamming, and the guys yelling your name. You are an Ironman, and these people are cheered for you. People that don't even know me. You knew me, Alan knew me, but none of those other people knew me. But they're cheering for me like like I was family. And it just gave me just a quick little glimmer into what will it mean to truly finish the race.
You're surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses.
Absolutely, exactly. So what will that reception be like? A much greater race, a much greater finish, a much longer race. What will that reception be like? And so I get now 2 times I've been able to experience that kind of reception of, much better words one day that I'll get to hear. Well done, thy good and faithful servant. But for now, you are an Ironman has been that glimmer of vision into what is to come for me.
Wow.
And one of the reasons that there's nothing like Ironman, there's nothing like, finishing a race like this, like our friend Courtney, who I think the same weekend finished a 100-mile race, who's been on the podcast. There's nothing like finishing something of such magnitude where you understand what it means to finish the race. You get a microcosm crammed into a 17-hour day of what a lifetime of race and struggle looks like. And you get that crammed into and compressed into a lot of emotions, into a lot of day. You're physically exhausted, your body's screaming at you, but all that goes away for those few minutes, and relief and triumph and joy floods in when you hear those words, and when you realize you've made it and you've finished. And man, it's one of the more incredible experiences that I think you can experience here. And man, I cherish it. I'm thankful. I feel super fortunate to have finished. I don't take that for granted, because I saw a lot of people not finish.
Yeah.
We're on that second loop of the run, and I'm watching people bow out that are done. People way more fit than me. These guys that are shredded, and something's gone wrong for them.
Yep.
And their body shuts down. Maybe their mind shuts down. Who knows what happens? But they're tapping out, and I was super grateful to have crossed the finish line. And it humbles you to know like what all went into that, and there's no way you could have done that by yourself. It's not an individual award, but it's an accomplishment that was brought on by a whole lot more than just me.
Yeah. Whenever you finished, and I was able to meet you at basically after you got some last minute nutrition and whatever they give you at the end of the race, I found you in the exit, and first thing you said to me is, "I cannot believe I just did that." And I mean, and I can't, I, the, at that moment, man, you got to be proud of yourself. You got to be proud of the accomplishment. And, man, what a great thing. And man, I was so happy for you. And I honestly, um, man, what a great thing to be a part of, and just cherish the memory of being able to see that from a different perspective. I don't have any plans to do an Ironman, but man, to be able to be on that support, the crew part of it was gosh, what a fun day for me to be a part of.
Yeah, well, I can genuinely look at people, at my size, and I get it, man. I don't look like an Ironman triathlete. I'm a big offensive lineman looking dude. I'm true Clydesdale, man. I am born and bred Clydesdale material, which is a giant horse that does not look sleek, but he can go a long time. I'm not fast, but I can go my speed a really long time. But I can look people in the eye and honestly tell them, you can go farther than you think you can go, and you can do more than you think you can do. I learned that. I've now experienced it twice of working through pain. And I genuinely went to places that I didn't know I was capable of in this race, of pain tolerance and pushing through what could have led to, injury, what could have led to a host of things, man. And I was really fortunate that it didn't, and I was able to finish. But I continued to learn that lesson that you say, like, I don't think I'm capable of that. And I would agree that, or I would say that you are capable. I would agree with, if anybody's ever read David Goggins' book, I mean, he's pretty crazy. He's out there. It's not family friendly. There's a lot of bad language in it. He's a Navy SEAL, but he really talks about like endurance. He's one of those guys that's done a lot of endurance races and a lot of ultra marathon stuff, and he really talks about what you're really capable of. And I think maybe he takes it a little too far, but I can honestly say I think we're capable of a whole lot more than what we think we are.
Yeah.
And I've experienced that. And so I encourage those that are out there that are taking on something big. You're capable of a lot more than you're giving yourself credit for. And towing the line and trying, you get to discover that. And it's a great experience.
One step at a time.
Yeah. Breaking it down to small. Let me worry about this mile.
Yeah.
There was one funny moment though that I made myself laugh. We always laugh about like Sasquatch, stuff, and part of that river walk was next to the river, and it's this really swampy. At 11 o'clock at night, we're kind of spread out. I can see the guy in front of me who's got one of those little glow necklace things on, so I can see that little glow necklace kind of bouncing along in the dark in front of me, and here's a street light every so often, but it's pretty creepy back there.
Yeah, it is dark.
It's dark. I mean, dark. And I think, boy, if Sasquatch or something were to come out of that swamp after me, it's over. Like, there's no running. There's no escape. There's no fighting. I've got nothing left.
You don't have to play dead.
I'm done.
I'm done.
I'm done. Here's my one consolation, though. I'm going to be the toughest piece of meat he's ever sunk his teeth into. And I'm going to be spit out because they're going to be like, that's lactic acid. That's like so salty.
I need to find somebody who's not on mile 140.
I was looking for something tender, not beef jerky. Right? Oh, man.
Messing with Sasquatch.
Messing with Sasquatch, exactly. Like, he's like, nope, I don't want anything to do with that. But yeah, it was. I had to get a laugh out of that. But it was pretty interesting back there. But you meet all kind of great people. I mean, we met some cool people. It's a cool community.
Yeah.
An encouraging community where you're out there and you're like, man, you can do it. You're suffering, they're suffering, but you can do it. Keep going, man. And so it's not like any other community that I've been a part of, and when I'm out or when I'm traveling or I'm off somewhere and they see an Ironman hat like I'm wearing or a backpack, or they see my tattoo on my leg, they'll come up to me and go, man, what race did you do? What's your story? And they want to share their story about their Ironman adventure.
And it's a cool community because of that, and it really knits you together because it is a small community. There are not a lot of people globally that have done an Ironman, so it's a tight knit community that loves to share their war stories about what they experienced.
Wow. Well, man, congratulations! What an accomplishment! 2-time Ironman finisher.
Yeah.
What a great title, man! And I'm so thankful that I was able to be a part of it. Thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah,
and man, this has been a fun, long. This is kind of a long form episode here. So,
yeah,
but I loved it.
We felt like it deserved it.
It did. A long time coming. We should have had it a year ago.
Yeah, absolutely. We should have, but that wasn't the plan. And I, looking back, I love the way that it worked out. I was so thankful to have you there.
We even got to hang out at the old fish camp.
Yeah, we did. We hit the fish camp on the way back and crashed there. That was great. And got us some Cracker Barrel.
We killed some pancakes that next morning.
That was incredible. And that lady, man, she was like bringing this food to me, which, I had not eaten anything that night because I was, just kind of too tired to even eat. Wasn't really hungry. So, boy, when I woke up, I was ravenously hungry. And we went to Cracker Barrel, and, I got to like the triple meat breakfast and biscuits and eggs and grits and 3 massive pancakes.
With a side of a triple stack.
And the lady's like sitting it down, and she's like, "This is yours, and this is yours too." And I was like, "Don't you judge me."
Lay off me, I'm starving.
Lay off, I'm starving. Oh man, but yeah, we absolutely devoured that, and then drove and headed back. So it was a great pit stop there at the old fish camp in beautiful Fort Payne, Alabama.
Yeah. Well, man, this has been a fun conversation. I hope people enjoy it. You want to close us out here?
Yeah, I hope it does inspire people. That is the one thing about Ironman that is really cool. It's inspiring, and I tell people all the time, if I can do this, like a lot more people can do this than they think. I'll say that over and over. You're capable of more than you think you're capable of, and can go farther than you think you can go. I will always be able to look my children in the eye and go, I know it hurts, but I know you can do it. I know you have it there. You can keep going. Don't give up. And I can say that with confidence and with experience that that's not easy to get, but I'm thankful to have it. It's bought and paid for with a lot of sweat, but it's a wonderful lesson, and I'm grateful for it. And I do hope this encourages people. And maybe I'll see some folks, and we'll get some messages of some people that triathlon. Any of that's where it began for me, was a sprint distance triathlon, and it led to this, and I'm thankful for it. But we love doing this podcast. This is a hobby and so much fun to tell these stories, and to meet people like we've met through these conversations. We want to share it. We want to grow it, and the way we grow this podcast is honestly, it's by your help. Just like Ironman, this is a group effort. We need your help to grow this podcast, and so that is for you. If you leave us a review or a rating, or share this with one of your buddies, and that maybe you have a buddy that does triathlon that needs to hear this story, share it with them. We want to share these stories, and to be an encouragement, and to be content for people to brighten their day and encourage the day and be life-giving to folks. So please share this. Leave us a review. We're so thankful for those that faithfully listen, that faithfully support, and we are grateful for your listenership and thankful for the opportunity to have these conversations, man. So we hope you are able to go write your own stories, share your own adventures in the storied outdoors.